When I imagined what my 20s would look like, I pictured movie-worthy moments from Sex and the City and Friends. I realized life actually turns out to be more like a blooper reel. Cue horrible dates, fake friends, and scary bosses. Those words are for my guest today, digital content creator and host / creator of From Here to Where, a podcast aimed at empowering women everywhere, Sarah Trott. The Southern California native began her career in journalism while still attending school, but life had a cruel twist that threatened to derail her dreams and reassess what's more important in life. This is her story. DJ, roll that music. Sarah, thanks for joining me on the Hangry Mexican.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, one of the things that just grabbed my attention about you was the fact that you do everything. I mean, you do podcasting, like hosting, especially like in entertainment, TV hosting. You've worked in news. I mean, you just do everything.
I wish I could pick one. I don't know. I'm a jack of all trades, I guess.
Yeah. Well, do you have a favorite one?
Oh, I would say, hosting and interviewing is my favorite thing. I grew up watching the news with my family and have been obsessed with news and just uncovering stories. And so I think that's my favorite thing, is just somehow making a way for strangers to relate to one another. So I love the interviewing part of it and the storytelling. That's great.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I got into news, because of the storytelling and telling people stories. And you never know if the situations that person is in is going to help out other people too, listening to it. Because one of the things I found out is that whatever you do in life, you're not alone. There's always somebody else that's going through the same thing.
Yeah, completely. I think a big reason I started my own podcast is because I found kind of a lack of resources, honestly. I feel like on social media, we see so many perfect lives, and I couldn't relate to that because I was going through some really hard stuff with my family and, doubt about my career and job future and what I really was passionate about. And I feel like I couldn't find, some of those resources. But the truth is, a lot of people are going through those things, whether it's, a family illness or, personal problems. A lot of people are going through those things, yet we don't see it. Yeah. So,
well, let's actually talk a little bit about your own podcast, because I listen to it and I love it.
Thanks.
It's awesome. So just explain the concept of the podcast and why you got into podcasting in the first place.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Here's a little guest.
Yeah, Sandy the Cocker Spaniel. He's our podcast mascot here.
He's just checking in to say hi. Are we good?
Yeah.
So my podcast is a girl's guidebook to the 20s. So I interview really a huge range of women. It's all by women, for women, sharing advice on what they wish they knew when they started their 20s. And so, nobody hands you a guidebook like, hey, this is what you need to know before you start this crazy decade. So this podcast is kind of a first step for people to hear from female CEOs, health and wellness experts, entrepreneurs, therapists, so we cover a range of topics, hearing from bloggers or models on how they overcome anxiety or insecurity or doubt. And then also, from therapists and people who have really good advice on more intense subjects like dealing with grief and loss and sexual assault recovery. And so I released the first 5 episodes, and each week I'm hoping to release one more. But you know how it goes with a podcast, it's a lot of fun, and it's a passion project for sure.
What's your process like from beginning to end, from when you first conceive an idea for your podcast episode to, when you actually upload it and publish it for everybody to hear? What's that process like for you?
Yeah, well, people listening who are so curious about starting their own podcast, my advice would be go for it. It's not too hard to do. I mean, you just need a couple startup costs to get the equipment and everything like that. for us journalists, it's a little bit easier than others. But I think, first off, finding intelligent, competent, badass women who have really good stories to share. That's the first and foremost important thing for me. And hearing from women who have something to offer, diverse women. So that's my first step, researching and pitching guests. Sometimes those guests will just fall in my lap. A friend will connect me or somebody I already know. I interviewed one of my college best friends, and I think that's one of my favorite episodes just because we're so close, but she has so much wisdom to share. Her episode is about ambition, networking, and creepy men. And so the things that nobody tells you about when you start your 20s, like, hey, just a heads up, you might encounter something like this. So pitching, researching the guests, somehow getting them to come on my show, and then either interviewing them in person. Well, actually, all of my interviews are in person, either in a studio or, where convenient for them. And then edit and release it to Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those things.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Well, distribution is a big thing. Did you have any help with that, or was it just all on your own research that you kind of find out how to distribute your podcast?
The free information on the internet is a beautiful thing. I had no idea how to start a podcast, but fortunately, I think these days, there are so many blogs, there are so many tutorials, YouTube videos on how to do it. And, I'm even considering making a video myself just to explain to friends or any of my followers, how do you make a podcast? And so, I winged it. I figured it out. But the barriers to entry, I think, into podcasting and blogging have gotten a lot easier because a lot of people have paved the way before us.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Just the equipment that we're using today for this podcast, it's good for a little in-studio type setup, but it's also good to take it out on field and be portable with it. And I've seen equipment that's thousands of dollars. I mean, you can the thing about podcasting, the beautiful thing about podcasting that I find so interesting is that there's technology out there that will get you the same results for more money or less money, depending on your budget. So anybody can do this. But like you said, you have to have a good story to tell.
The story is, listening is hearing from smart, interesting people. I don't know. I think that's what makes or breaks a podcast.
Exactly. Well, what's the name of your podcast?
From Here to Where. And also, I'm not like smart, interesting myself, but, I think that's the most important thing to have in a podcast.
Well, I think you're really interesting.
I'm not trying to, I'm just realizing I'm on a podcast here, but I'm talking about who I interview on podcasts. We can edit that out maybe.
Oh, it's all good. This is the heart and soul of every conversation. And you're having a nice little cup of coffee. I'm just having water this morning. I already had mine earlier today.
I can't live without coffee.
Are you able to drink it black?
No, I can't. As you've seen earlier, I'm not at that level yet. But I think, honestly, I'm the kind of person that has like 3 or 4 cups a day, which is probably horrible for me. I don't know.
Oh, just take me through a typical day for you, because that sounds like a lot of coffee to me. But I'm sure that I know a lot of people that drink just a lot of coffee or energy drinks or anything just to kind of handle their day to day because they have so much on their plate or a lot of projects they have to go through. I certainly have a lot of stuff to do every day, but just take me through a typical day that in the life of Sarah.
Well, the beautiful thing about a typical day is that no day looks the same. So I don't think I have a typical day, honestly. But an ideal day maybe would be, waking up. I love fitness and health. I used to hate working out. So the first thing I do just to get in the right mindset is, either like go for a run, be outdoors, go to a workout class, finding that community of people who are just so positive and optimistic and into fitness. That's really changed my life perspective. And so starting out working out in the day, waking up early-ish. I'm not an early riser by any means, but try to get my day going. And then when I worked at the news station, that was a completely different schedule. That was every day seemed the same. But nowadays, we'll be working on my computer, researching guests, following up with emails, blogging. I'm a writer and a journalist. So my favorite thing to do is to write and to share my thoughts. So sometimes after an interview, I'll put together some of my favorite or most important takeaways from the guests that I bring on my podcast, and we'll share that onto my blog. And then also a lot of my day is troubleshooting. Like some sort of problem will come up or my website will have some sort of glitch, and then 2 hours later I'm down some like YouTube tutorial rabbit hole and I'm figuring out how to, put out like small fires every day. So every day is different, but I try to have some consistency, like with, working out and, making time, for myself and for my friends, but also just being diligent about, what my bigger goal is.
It's funny you mentioned troubleshooting because to me that's my favorite part of the day when I have to do that, because I do have to do a lot of troubleshooting as well. In fact, right now for this podcast, I'm monitoring to make sure that we have audio going in and everything's working fine. Mm-hmm. But I find that troubleshooting elevates your knowledge about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because then you become more experienced. Then whenever something comes up and other people are freaking out, you know exactly what's going on and you know how to fix it.
Totally. So, that's how you grow. I mean, you need to have these little things happen so you know how to handle them in the future.
Yeah. Well, what would you say is your favorite part of the day?
Oh, wow.
And going to bed and falling asleep does not count.
I think, being a freelancer is just so overwhelming at times. And so my favorite part of the day is that feeling of accomplishment. And so I think it's really, it's easy for people who are freelancing, or even if you're in, a 9-to-5 job and you have that stability, to feel lost or to feel like you haven't accomplished much. And so I think setting a to-do list, not an enormous to-do list, because I do that sometimes and I'll have like 15 bullet points of things that I want to do. And more realistically, that will take me 2 weeks to accomplish, not one day. So just being realistic with the goals that I have, things that I want to accomplish, whether it's, sending out, these 3 emails that I've been meaning to get to, or, adding a blog post, releasing a podcast episode, following up with job applications, different things like that. When I check off my to-do list, that is my absolute favorite part of the day. And then also maybe like a glass of wine at 5 p.m. right when it hits 5 p.m. Yeah.
That's awesome. I wish I had your life.
Well, the freelancing life is pretty scary. It's pretty, I went from that stability of, every day working at a TV station as a reporter and an anchor, and I knew kind of what to expect. Although the stories changed every day, I knew I had to have, a news package in the 5 and 6 newscasts. And I knew I had to, put out a web story first, and I knew who I had to report to. And when you're not reporting to a superior, you're really just reporting to yourself. You're out on your own. It's kind of scary. It's like you hold yourself accountable. So it's fun in some ways, but also being a freelancer can be kind of lonely and intimidating and easy to get off track.
Yeah. You have to be super disciplined, I imagine, to be a freelance. In news, what did you do? Were you a news reporter, on-air reporter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I worked at the ABC station in Palm Springs, California, known for Coachella. That's probably how people, will know about it. But yeah, it was my first job out of college. In college, I worked at an NBC station doing reporting and anchoring, MMJing.
While in college?
While in college. So I went to the University of Missouri, and I'm from San Diego. So the reason I went to this school was specifically for the broadcast program, because the broadcast students are required to work at this local NBC affiliate. It was grandfathered in. It's the only school in the country that does this, where you're not working just for like a campus news station. You're working for an NBC affiliate that broadcasts to mid-Missouri. So you have real viewers, real people who know who you are, and you're held to these standards after you obviously take the required broadcast classes. So that's where I worked in college, got experience, created a reel, an on-air reel, a tape that I could send to recruiters and news directors, and got hired in Palm Springs, where I worked as a reporter and anchor for a year.
Did you always want to be in news or ever think that you'd be in news from an early age?
I grew up watching the news religiously with my family every night, probably when I was, 7, 8 years old, mostly to procrastinate homework, honestly. Like, didn't want to do my homework. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll buy time, like 30 minutes on the couch watching the news with my parents. And, what was actually unfolding in my brain, as I was watching these confident, intelligent, smart, beautiful female journalists on TV, I was thinking to myself, like, I want to be like them. And what a fascinating thing that we trust these people enough to bring them into our homes, into our living room, to tell us the world's events. And so it kind of started with that curiosity and fascination of, what is this that we're watching? Who are these people? And then that translated into taking media classes in middle school and high school, working for my school newspaper. I was the editor-in-chief of my school newspaper. Small brag. I was really proud of that. No, and then moving halfway across the country from sunny San Diego to middle of nowhere, Missouri, and going to this broadcast school and taking broadcast classes. And it's kind of been my life work, my lifelong passion.
So how scary was it for you to even consider going halfway across the country for this particular, endeavor and passion that you had when there was no family members waiting for you on that side?
It was kind of terrifying, honestly. But what kept me going was this passion and this dream that I had, and that in a weird way comforted me because I knew I was so steadfast in what I wanted to do. And I knew if I focused on that, then I would be okay. And it was hard, not being near my family. Family is the most important thing to me, above career, above anything else. My family is the most important thing. And so being away from them was actually really difficult. And also, for some reason in Missouri, just being from California, I felt like an outsider at times. A lot of people in the journalism school, come from different parts of the country. And so I think we bonded together, us out-of-state people, all there for the same reason, for the incredible journalism program, not just broadcast, but other parts of journalism too.
And how was that experience there? Do you have any particular stories that stand out to you on your regarding your time there and Missouri, working for that NBC station, NBC affiliate, and attending college there? Yeah,
I think it's so funny looking back at the clips. When I was 18 on air, now I'm 23, and just seeing how nervous I was, to be on air and be on camera, but. We covered so many different things. They threw us into the fire, us like young journalists, because we were, driven and we wanted to do it. We wanted to take on more. But gosh, what did I cover? A tornado that like blew past in mid-Missouri. A lot of like crime and local news. Gosh, I'm trying to think. What were my favorite stories? I did a investigative report on the local airport, and it was my senior year, and in the advanced broadcasting class, we were required to do 2 investigative reports. One of them, I figured out the way Columbia, Missouri, tests the quality of their water is like completely whack. Like for the terrain, for, the part of the country, it's just, Aaron Brockovich's assistant was involved in this story, interviewed him. So that was an interesting story, ruffled some feathers with the local city government.
That's always fun.
Yeah, they definitely did not like me. That's probably why I got so many parking tickets. They knew my car.
Oh, no.
No, I'm just kidding. And then another story I was really, really passionate about, this story about the Columbia airport. And it's a tiny little airport, and they were expanding to add another or make a new airport. And so they had 7 different designs or something like this. They involved the University of Missouri engineering department to assess, which location would be the best. And for some reason, the city council went with like one of the less favorable options, which would waste like $1 million worth of taxpayer money. And so uncovering that and trying to figure out, why the city government, decided to go forward with this decision when engineering students and a consulting company suggested against it. That also, ruffled some feathers. I don't think I can ever take a flight out of the Columbia airport ever again.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. And it's been a few years since I've done this story, so I hope the facts are straight. But I think it's a risk you have to take when you're a journalist, and being comfortable with upsetting people. And no one else will do it. I think that's the beautiful thing about journalism and the freedom of the press in the United States, is that you can, uncover these stories, and we have the freedom to release them and share them with the world.
Would you ever want to work as a journalist outside the United States, in some other country?
I would love to. I think for a time I considered like moving to, like Italy or something like that, and wanting to learn. I'm obsessed with Italy. Learn Italian and be a correspondent or bilingual reporter. That was a dream for a moment, and then I realized I think that's impossible. But I don't know. I would maybe still be open to it down the road. I love travel. It lights my soul on fire. So that's maybe something to come.
And why Italy specifically? What's so great about Italy?
Have you ever been?
No.
Okay, well.
But I've heard a lot of great things.
People who have been don't even need to hear my answer. They just know it's great. No, but it's just the culture is so, passionate, and it's just so beautiful. And I mean, gosh, anywhere you go, it's like out of a storybook. So it's a little bit of a fairy tale. And I think that's also why I thought it would be fun to move there. I went on a family vacation when I think I was like 10 years old, and fell in love with the country. Traveled there. It was the first time I think I went out of the country with my parents, and was just captivated by it. And that hasn't changed. Plus, I love Italian food and wine. So I'm like, hey, if I could be like a Vatican reporter, that'd be cool, right?
Oh, yes.
I don't know.
Wow. No, that's awesome. Okay, well, then let's... how long were you there in Missouri?
I was there for 4 years, and started working at the station, the local news station, as quickly as I could.
Now, is it Missouri or Missouri?
Depends who you ask. If you're from the southern part of Missouri, it's Missouri. But if you're from St. Louis or Kansas City, it's Missouri.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so after 4 years, then you decide, okay, I want to come back to California.
Yes.
So then where did you end up after that?
Palm Springs. So from San Diego.
Straight out from Missouri to Palm Springs?
Yes. So I was one of the first in my class of broadcast students in college to make a decision on where I wanted to go. We actually had recruiters come to our school and scout for us. People that came, I felt like a pro athlete getting scouted by, agents or something like that. I don't know. Not even into sports, but that's the best analogy I could come up with. But just because the broadcast program was so awesome, these like large news companies saw the talent there and, wanted to pick some fresh, young, hungry journalists to, come to their smaller stations. So for those who aren't familiar, every single city, well, not every city, major city, top 200 cities in the U.S. are ranked on viewership. And so those demographics help with advertising and revenue and all of that. And so therefore, each city is kind of like ranked in a hierarchy of, the biggest top 10 markets are the most coveted, hard to reach, people want to work there. There's more resources at those TV stations. So you kind of, when you're starting out in your first job, you usually go to like a smaller market, where you can be afforded the ability to make some mistakes. It's a smaller TV station, smaller community, less eyes watching you. That's where you really grow and improve and jump from market to market. So that's just how it works if you're a TV reporter. So I started in Palm Springs, which was market 140 something. San Diego, which is, 2 hours away, is market 28, I believe. And then LA is market 2. So you're kind of in this like little triangle where you're right like wedged between two much bigger markets, and you are kind of held to the same standard. And sometimes you're covering some of the same stories that these much larger markets are covering, or they'll come to you because Palm Springs is such a hub for entertainment and news. Those bigger stations will come to Palm Springs, so you have more eyes on you. So it was such an attractive place to start. I liked the company. It was a family-owned TV station, and so I felt really good about it being close to home, and also all of the opportunities that could possibly come from being in this part of the country.
And I'm actually glad you mentioned, about just your process to get to kind of like where you are now, but just that journey of starting at a low level market, small market, making your way to maybe like a medium sized market, and kind of just working that way. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because what I wanted to ask you was, you're still very young. And you're very humble about it all, about your experience and your journey. But I've met people around our age group that they expect to just get to market number 2. Sometimes straight out of college.
I'm shaking my head. You can't see that you're listening to a podcast. I'm shaking my head.
So I think you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah.
What do you think about folks that have that type of mentality, and your advice to those folks?
Well, first off, I get it. I sometimes feel that too. I feel like, well, I want to be there. Like, I think I deserve to be there. But then you look back, and hindsight is 20/20, and you're like, no. I need the opportunity to learn and grow. And so, I'm a millennial. I have that mindset too, where sometimes I just want things instantly, the instant gratification. Sometimes you want it handed to you. Like, I get it. Like, it's nice to, think that way sometimes, but that's just not how it works. That's not how it works in this industry and many other industries, not just broadcast. You start, in a position that's, maybe not your dream job, but as long as you're diligent about networking and asking for more, you work your way to the top. And also, I think the respect doesn't come unless you've had that, history, that backlog of, okay, so what stories have you done, and what experience do you have, and what about if you were to be thrown into this situation? And you can't, have those correct answers unless you've messed up a couple times, unless you have that experience under your belt. And so whether you're, in broadcast journalism or working, in finance or real estate or whatever, nursing, you need to have that experience. You have to work for it. It's not easy though.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so you're in Palm Springs, and how long are you there for at KESQ?
I was there a year, and it was cut short. I signed a 2-year contract because I was presented with this really difficult situation and grappled with it. I wasn't sure what to do. My dad has ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, which is a muscular neurological disease. So basically the breakdown of all of your, bodily movements and breathing, eating, talking, walking, all of that. And so it's a rare disease. It's an incredibly cruel disease. He was diagnosed when I was in college, and it was really difficult because family is so important to me. And so it got to a point when I was about a year in, again, why I wanted to be so close to San Diego, because every weekend, my 2 days off, I was driving 2.5 hours to San Diego from Palm Springs. And that was exhausting too. Coming back, making that drive, 2.5 hours each way, it was exhausting. And so my dad got to a position where he needed help. He went on hospice, and he just needed help. My mom needed help. My sister needed help. We only had one caregiver at the time. Oh. And for anyone who has been a caregiver or has had a loved one go through a terminal illness, it's really difficult. And so I feel for those people. And yeah, I just decided that I needed, for the first time in my young life, to really make a decision. Like, am I going to stay at this TV station where I feel like I'm distracted and not giving my all because it is a very demanding job? Or am I going to give my all to my family and they need my help right now? So I decided to leave, and that was terrifying. That was a hard decision to make. But
well, first of all, my heart goes out to you. I've also had to deal with
thank you.
type of situation. And thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it is very scary when you leave. Well, first, when you kind of jump into something that's uncertain, but also when you leave something that's familiar already. How did you process that? How did you deal with that to get to a point where you felt comfortable in your decision?
Yeah, it was hard. It took a while because I left the station originally on a temporary leave, and there's just so much uncertainty and unpredictability with my dad's condition. And so, it was a hard process to come to terms with it. And it's been about 9 months since I left the job, and I'm now finally feeling okay about it. But, it was definitely a lot of, doubt and worry about, my reputation in the industry. And, I felt like, well, gosh, I can't look like I'm happy because I'm supposed to be here, helping my dad all the time. I'm supposed to be miserable, right? Like, this is why I left the station. And so just retraining my brain to push out those negative thoughts that, are like lies that I'm telling myself. Like, no, you can be happy. Yeah, you are going through something really difficult at the moment. To tune out, maybe like criticism or judgment from people who really don't know my situation, because the truth of the matter is nobody knows your personal situation more so than yourself. So if you're dealing with something difficult, really only like you and maybe your close family or circle, know. And you don't owe that to anyone to explain yourself. And I felt like I had to constantly explain this decision and explain my actions and justify it to, either former coworkers or strangers even. And that just becomes an overwhelming burden on yourself, and it's so unnecessary. So it was a long process, but just, keeping up relationships with, close friends, people who I trust, therapy. I can't stress that enough. I think that's so important to talk to a professional. I talked to a couple different life coaches and therapists because, you can't do it on your own. Life is so complicated and messy sometimes, and there's no shame in reaching out to experts who can provide you with some help and guidance.
Mm-hmm. And surrounding yourself with people that are positive in your life. I think at this point in my life, or by the time I got to this point in my life, rather, I had discarded people that were just negative.
Yeah.
And, I didn't need that. I did like a 180 in the way that I saw life, especially after, I'm still doing news, but I started out as a news photographer. So I saw things that I think most people wouldn't see in their entire lives. And that really put my perspective in life, just shifted it completely. It turned it upside down. But, I tried to not let those things consume me. And so instead of turning to, drinking or drugs or, anything that is seen as negative or unhealthy, I turned it to doing creative works.
Creative.
Yeah.
And it's so much more fulfilling. I think, there are so many temptations and distractions, and being able to part ways with people, places, habits that are no longer serving you and, moving you forward. Sometimes you just need to cut that out of your life. And that's a lesson that, again, like, wanting to be at the number one news station in the country, like, you need to find that on your own. Like, it takes time to develop those skills and awareness to do that. But that's really admirable that you are so focused. And I think a big thing is to have, like a vision board or a goal, and just constantly be checking in on yourself and your progress of, okay, what am I doing? Is this making me happy? Is this helping me toward the goal? And it's great that you've done that. And I'm sure you have, your goals clearly defined and set as well.
Yeah, I think so.
Or and maybe not like specifically, that sounds pretty intense, but like you kind of have a vision of like what you want. And maybe that's not as specific as like a job title or something, but rather a feeling, like that feeling of accomplishment. Like when you asked me what was my favorite part of the day, it was checking off my to-do list. So for you, maybe, that those feelings are feelings of accomplishment and success and happiness. Doesn't necessarily mean like a job title or something.
Yeah. I mean, I before I got to LA, I do come from a work environment that was, toxic in many regards. But what kept me going every single day was waking up knowing that at the end of the day, I was maybe changing people's lives in the community a little bit, if not making them better for that day. And I did have a lot of people throughout my 11 years working news in Santa Barbara coming up to me saying, I love what you're doing. I love your reporting. Thank you for keeping us informed. And that always just kept me going.
Yeah.
Was that
great.
the same for you?
Yeah, I think so. I think, having a purpose is an essential thing for, humans, innately. Like having a purpose and being able to contribute is just something that, we all feel like a calling that we need to do, whether it's like contributing with a friendship or a job or something like that. And so that definitely kept me going too, knowing that the work you're doing is impacting or helping others in a positive way. That definitely kept me going and was a big reason why I liked local news. But then, I don't know, another reason I switched and left the industry was because I also saw it changing, which we talked a little bit before this podcast. And we both see too, that, you can help people, but now there are new platforms and new ways that are more efficient to, communicate and help those people.
Exactly. Okay. So you leave Palm Springs to take care of family. And then you from Palm Springs, do you get to LA or do you go to San Diego for a while?
San Diego for a while. So, and my dad is still alive and he's doing so incredible. He is surpassing doctors' expectations. He is so positive. And so that's a reason why I felt like okay to come to LA from San Diego, because we got more caregivers for him, and he's doing okay. It's the nature of the disease is just like a slow decline, but he's almost plateaued a little bit.
Wow,
it's
That's
unbelievable.
Incredible. I've read articles about this where the positivity of the person itself can change the direction of or the progress of whatever they have, the disease that they're suffering from. And the incredible power of the human spirit, I think, is it's a real thing, in my opinion.
Yes, I have seen it firsthand with my dad and people in the community. We come from a really tight-knit community in San Diego, and strangers will tell him, like, you are an inspiration to me, Tom. You are making me feel like any, small, hiccup that I have in my day, like I can get through that because I see what you're dealing with, which is like a mountain compared to what I'm dealing with. And the way you tackle this with dignity and grace and humility, and positivity is just game changing. And so, yeah, I think his condition is, he's a fighter. He's hanging in there and surpassing doctors' expectations, our family's expectations. It's incredible. And I also think faith has a lot to do with that too. So we are a Christian family, and I couldn't imagine going through this process without believing in a higher power. So
that's awesome. You just give me chills.
Oh,
no, that's an incredible story. And I really wish your dad the best, because we need folks like that are an inspiration to others, fighting the good fight within themselves to just keep going. I mean, not a lot of people do that. A lot of people, they tend to just give up. But I just think that's inspiring. Thank you for sharing that.
Thanks. I'm an open book. And, I feel like my dad's positivity has, radiated through me. I haven't always been the most positive person. I feel like I'm here on a soapbox, on this podcast, but no, we've all gone through our struggles and hard times. And I honestly think I've been more positive because of him and just what he's been going through, and it's been good. But yeah.
Do you think things happen for a reason?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think the silver lining in this horrible disease that, that he has, it's given him the opportunity to inspire others. And there is a reason that, he had this disease. It's to empower and inspire others. And with me personally, the time to step back from a career and to really reflect and reassess my passions and priorities, that's been such a blessing and wouldn't have happened otherwise unless this tragic disease, happened to my dad. So I think no matter what situation you're in, you can find, a positive. There are so many negatives. I could talk on this podcast, for an hour about all of the horrible things and the negative things and the sadness and the heartache, but that's not positive. Like, we need to, inspire others and motivate each other and focus on the good.
Exactly. And, there was probably another time when I would want to dwell in those negative stories. But I think I feel like my podcast has evolved as well from how it first started. So I do want to focus more on just the positive, because you're right. I think everybody goes through some negative thing in life, whatever that may be, whether it's work or family related. But if you focus on the positive, it's something that you can almost aspire to also be. It's like if I hear somebody talking about, some great thing that they accomplished, maybe they won the marathon or something good like that. Yeah. Then it makes me think like, oh, I want to do that. I want to have some of that too. So that's what I tend to accomplish also with this podcast, or that's at least the direction that I'm moving towards.
I love that. That's great. Podcasts are a great way to I am obsessed with podcasts, and I want to listen to more of your episodes because you're just such a natural interviewer too. You don't even have any questions up here. Like, when I have a podcast, I kind of have like an outline, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to say? This is just natural for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I just I love meeting people and talking to them, and I'm so curious about what makes them tick. What is it that keeps them going? Because everybody has a story to tell. And also I find out that if I have questions, then it sounds so robotic in a way. Because it's like, okay, let's see, what else can I ask you here that I haven't asked? And it's like, for me at least, I just hate doing that. But I gotta also say that the church has helped me a lot, because when I was in Santa Barbara, our pastor, and I got to give him a shout out, Pastor Dale Swanson from New Life Church in Santa Barbara.
What's up?
He once gave a service in which he said that one great thing about Jesus was that he his best work came from meals with people.
Okay.
Yeah, because that was a time for him to talk, and people listened, a time for him to interact with a lot of other people in a more intimate setting. And to me, I thought that is in fact, that's one of the things that got me going with this podcast, because I thought he's totally right. At least in my experience, people tend to let loose and kind of spill the beans, if you will, or just talk and converse when they're
sharing
eating.
It, breaking bread together. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, totally. I mean, if you think about like the dynamic when you have like a big group dinner, people, sharing stories and laughing and opening up about things. And I feel like that's kind of what you're doing, like we have like coffee and like, breakfast or whatever. And, we're like sharing a meal together, almost sitting at a table, and it's really cool what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. It's good therapy too, I think, for me at least. Just to talk about people and get their story and their input on things. But the really interesting thing again about you is that you're dealing with all of this, and then you move to LA, and now what are you doing in LA besides the podcast?
What am I doing?
Give us a list. Give us a list of all
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm just trying to like figure out how to survive because it's been about 2 weeks and I am headfirst in the job search process because although I do like freelancing, I do want to have some stability. So, trying to find an agent and trying to find, like a new avenue I can go down that uses the skills of journalism and storytelling and interviewing and presenting, speaking in front of a camera. What can I do? What are those job opportunities out there? So a lot of my time is searching for jobs and, also just trying to be diligent about the other things that I have, like my website, Instagram, podcasting, my friends, getting out for some workout and fresh air. Every day is different. And so it's been pretty new here. Only been here for like about 2 weeks. And
wow, recent.
Very recent. Just trying to figure out like the roads and which way to go. But I've been coming here for years. It's not that different being from San Diego, but it is a big transition for sure.
Yeah. And it's not a far drive to San Diego either.
Still find myself going back like every weekend. So
that's good. Like every now and then I go to Santa Barbara.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going there this weekend. But I tend to go there about like once a month, once every 2 months now that I'm in LA. But there was a time when I lived in Oxnard, and so it was like 45 minutes away. So every weekend almost after work, I would just go over there, and I still have friends and family over there. But I'm making new friends and family over here in LA too. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
How has that process been for you of just making friends and in new places?
I think, finding ways to create community for yourself, whether you're starting college or you move to a new city for a job, whatever, it's difficult to make friends when you're an adult, when you're not in elementary school and, walking to the cafeteria every day with the same people, like it's different when you're an adult. It's hard. So creating community for yourself. I found a church here that I really like, and I want to get connected with a Connect group. So that's something I'm doing to create that community of like-minded people with similar interests. My gym that I go to, I love the positive energy, the fitness, upbeat, just like sense of community. It's like a rush. When I walk in there, people know my name. And I think that's important for humans, like people who are excited to see you and know you by name and welcome you, whether it's a church or a gym, and like having that consistency and creating friends and putting yourself out there. I also joined a co-working space for females called The Forward Female. It's in downtown LA. Love it. I have 2 career coaches. The founders of this co-working space also offer individualized career coaching. And then, instead of working on my laptop in my apartment where, I'm by myself and sometimes feel lonely, I'll be surrounded by other female entrepreneurs that are career-oriented, goal-oriented, and inspire me to, keep going and are friends too. So it takes time, but you have to figure it out for yourself. You have to put yourself in those situations.
And so when you have some, well, actually, first of all, do you travel to downtown LA a lot?
I mean, for this co-working space, I do, but it's far from where I live. It's about like 30 minutes, and the traffic. Oh,
I know. That's what I was going with. Yeah, because I've only gone there once, and it was to pick up a press credential from the sheriff's office.
I'm never going back. Okay.
And it's usually pretty hectic with traffic. It's like I don't know. I don't get nervous about driving in LA. But once I get to downtown, I kind of shake a little bit. It's just like, it's crazy. Plus parking. I mean, it's just
the crazy thing about LA. Each part of the city is so wildly different. Yes. Like if you go to like Beverly Hills or Santa Monica or Hollywood, downtown LA, all these different communities. But that's what's so cool. You'll drive like a few miles and it'll take you 30 minutes to get those few miles, but it's just so different. And it's so many different people and food and cultures and lifestyles. It's such a melting pot. It's really exciting to be here.
No, that's awesome. It's what it keeps me kind of waking up every morning, looking forward to the day. What's going to happen today? Who am I going to meet?
Right.
Yeah. Just walking down the street, what's down there, what I do usually to get to work is I tend to take different routes. Mm-hmm. and yeah, just getting to know just not only the back streets and the roads to kind of get around the 405, which can be pretty messy, but also to just see the differences in the community, and I mean, after all, I am covering. This is part of the market I'm covering, so in the community I'm covering. So why not get to know it? And for me, at least, the best way to get to know the community you're serving is to get out there.
Right.
So when you were in Missouri and Palm Springs, how did you get to know that community? I mean, did you do something on your days off, maybe that to kind of help you with that, or was it just all about kind of feeling it out and asking people back at the station?
No, I think you have to, make those connections and, set up meetings with city leaders. When you're a new journalist in town, you kind of have to really understand the people in the place that you're serving and be familiar with the different demographics and the different, regions of the city and, where things are happening and what's going on where. So the interesting thing about Palm Springs was just the disparity in wealth, and how it was it is a huge tourism attraction, but it's also, a very big, migrant agricultural community. There are really big issues with, wealth, education, resources into those lower income areas. And then you drive, 30 minutes and you're in La Quinta, Indian Wells, or Palm Springs, and it's mansions and pools and golf courses, and only a couple miles away there are people who have food insecurity and things like that. So a lot of those things that I picked up, and the way I learned about that, obviously hearing about it but seeing it firsthand, being thrown into stories in different parts of Palm Springs or all areas of Coachella Valley. And so seeing that, and then also really cool, Palm Springs has a huge gay community, which is so awesome. It's so vibrant. And so you really have this very dimensional community, but there's no way you can see that by reading about it. You have to go out and meet those people and make those connections and see for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't just stay back at the station and after 5 p.m. just call it a day.
Right.
And go back home, do the same thing all over again the next day.
No, you have to go out there and do it. Yeah, that's what's exciting about it. It's definitely not for everyone, though. Some people, that's intimidating to them, and that's okay too. Some people, it's okay if you like the routine. But I know for me, I couldn't do that. I'd rip my hair out probably.
Well, and I think that's kind of also one of the important things about digital too. You get to meet a lot more people in the community of podcasting or journalism or whatever other communities you want to be part of. You can easily do that now, I feel, with social media. Now, having said that, though, I don't mean just stay on social media. Actually go out and meet people face to face and say hi.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about digital, because that is such a big component about what you and I do in this world too in general. Of course, there's a lot of bullying out there on social media. Have you experienced that yourself?
A little bit, yeah. Either mean comments or just judgment from people. And I think social media is a really easy platform for people to hide behind their phone screens and to write something nasty or, mock you or whatever. And, a lot of times we would never say those insults to somebody, face to face. But for some reason, when we're behind our screens, in the comfort of our own homes, miles away from whoever we're looking at or criticizing on social media, it's easier. And I think that's pathetic. That's not the original purpose of social media. It was meant to connect us, and it's changed so much, and it's sad to see that kind of happening. But I will say there is a lot of positive that I've seen. And I think in the past couple years, especially on Instagram, a huge shift has happened from, we have such perfect lives, perfectly curated photos, to, hey, this is really what's going on in my life, or post a photo of the, pretty picturesque, perfectly curated photo, and then you swipe and it's Instagram versus reality. I think that's important to see all sides of it. But yeah, I don't think I've been attacked necessarily on social media, but some hints of it, and it just doesn't feel good. Like, why do people do that?
Yeah, exactly. Do you feel like Instagram has exploded over just the last few years as one of the most used platforms versus, like, let's say Facebook or Twitter? Or do you think like those other platforms have equally grown? Or in your opinion, just which platform do you think has been the most fast growing and efficient for our generation today?
I would say Instagram is king. Like, I don't really go on Facebook anymore. I went on Twitter a lot for news. You know, we were expected to tweet constantly, but Twitter was such a, like one-sided, platform. Like, I think there were like the people who were using it the most were mostly like journalists or like celebrities. And, some everyday people will like post funny things and stuff too, but it just didn't feel like the engagement was really there on Twitter. Whereas Instagram, obviously it's, aesthetically pleasing. You see like photos, you get a really quick grasp of, who somebody is and what they're all about, whether it's a brand or a business or an influencer or anyone, TV station. It's almost like the 2020 like modern business card where you see on social media when you pull up someone's Instagram page exactly who they are and what they're about, kind of. So I found Instagram to be really efficient when I was researching and pitching guests to come on my podcast. And some of the connections I made were just through DMs and like, hey, like, I can see what you're all about. I think it's fascinating. Some like in the bio section, it'll quickly show like CEO of, this company or founder of this, or, it's almost like a resume and a business card. Instagram is really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have to really agree with that too, because I've had to, really all my guests are either people that I know just in person through connections or Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. I mean, especially Twitter. Like there's nobody there that I can actually DM. I've tried in the past and I have succeeded in a couple DMs here and there, but most of the time Instagram has been my go-to source to, like you said, get guests on the podcast. But I find that now I use Facebook and Twitter just for news. So when I'm at work, I tweet news on those platforms. But I find Instagram more appealing for me to post stuff about my life. Now, I don't post everything out there, obviously, but I do post now a little bit more about what I'm doing behind the scenes. Before, it was a little bit more intimidating. And again, it comes down to just the bullying or harassment, because when you work for a Fox station, that may come with stigma as well, especially in today's political climate. So it's just, but now I'm starting to post a little bit more about myself and about what I do. So it may not necessarily be pictures of me. Yeah. But like, for example, yesterday I covered the Pete Buttigieg town hall at USC, and I posted a few pictures on my Instagram. So they weren't about me, they were pictures about him, but pictures that I took. Right. So it's just showcasing a little bit about
your portfolio. Even it's it's such a easy way to showcase, your work and what you do too. And it's just so easy to, this is my Instagram handle, follow me. And so, but I know what you mean about the harassment and also the comparison game and comparing your content and your followers. And it's a nasty downward spiral. But, I, of course, like have experienced that too. We're all humans. We compare each other all the time, but just staying, focused on what you do and in taking those risks and putting yourself out there, you may be pleasantly surprised by the reactions you get when you put out authentic stuff. That's important to you.
Yeah. What's your favorite feature of Instagram?
Ooh, I would say probably the stories. I love Instagram stories. Yeah. I love that you can like geotag, you can tag people. I'm constantly on Instagram. I probably need to like quit it a little bit. But.
Well, having said that, now let's spark. And again, you said I don't have any notes on me, so this is all at the top of my head. But we're gonna go through a little like, what's your favorite game?
Ooh, okay, let's do it.
Okay, what's your favorite app?
Instagram.
What's your favorite creative app that you have installed on your phone that it's not social media?
Lightroom.
Lightroom.
I edit my photos on that. It's an Adobe app. Yeah.
I think I have it for desktop. I've not seen it for the app. That's interesting.
I love Lightroom. It's the best editing app in my opinion. But I use a couple. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. What's your favorite color?
Red. It's confidence, good luck. I like it.
Very nice.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite food?
Pasta all the way. Give me like a big plate of pasta and I would be like happy. That would be my last meal probably.
Wow. Okay. Favorite drink, alcoholic and non-alcoholic?
Red wine, of course. Red wine paired with the pasta. And non-alcoholic, probably like an extra large iced coffee.
Ooh, okay. Yeah. All right. What's your favorite song?
Ooh, probably maybe like an oldie, like a classic. My dad always would play oldies, the Beatles, maybe something like Here Comes the Sun, like Yesterday, Hey Jude. One of those like classic oldies. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Apple or Windows?
Apple. Big Apple fan. Yeah. That was easy.
We probably mentioned this earlier. In fact, I think we did, but I'll ask it anyway. What's your favorite country to visit?
Italy. But I'm also, fun fact, a dual citizen of Canada. My mom was born there. Yep.
Wow, talk about burying the lead. What's this?
I know. Buried the lead. Sorry. Yeah. So if this country just like somehow, something happens, I have an escape plan.
One day I remembered that this was in the dead of winter. And I went to go visit my mother-in-law, and she lives over in New Hampshire. Okay. She lives about maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from the Canadian border. Mm-hmm. And this is the French-Canadian side. So we drove in there because I really wanted to see Canada, and I just happened to be visiting in winter. So it was like snow everywhere. And we get into this little town called Quaticook.
Okay.
And for some reason, they have the best ice cream I've ever tasted. Vanilla was just awesome. So creamy and so different than what I've had here. It was out of this world. But I was there having ice cream in winter as the snow is falling.
Like a true Canadian, probably. Like, this is a nice day. It's freezing cold.
Exactly. Okay. Let's see. What else? What's your favorite saying?
Ooh, I would say whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Ooh.
Yeah. So it's all about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Whether you think you like can't achieve something, like, oh, that's impossible, there's no way. Well, then it will for sure be impossible if you say it's impossible. Wow. You don't know if you don't try.
Yeah. Exactly.
What's your favorite saying? I need to add a couple more to my quote list.
Oh man. Let's see. There's so many. I can't think one at the top of my head right now. I do remember though, and I brought this in the last podcast episode. There was I've grown up watching movies all my life. In fact, I wanted to be a filmmaker while attending school, and then I just happened to land a spot in doing news and creating, and I just kind of fell in love with that world. Mm-hmm. But I remember seeing the Scarface movie with Al Pacino from the 80s.
Yeah.
And there was a line in there that he said, he was asked by this drug lord.
Oh, God.
saying, he's saying, why should I believe you? And he said, Scarface, Al Pacino said, because the only thing I have is my word. And so that line has stuck with me forever, because I always strive to, if I tell you something that I'm going to do something, then I'll do it. I don't want to let you down.
That hit me. Like, I have chills now. I love that.
Yeah, because to me, there's nothing better out there than a person's integrity and honesty. Mm-hmm. That's how I try and live my life too. So I would say that's probably my favorite saying or quote. It happens to come from a movie, but
that's good. No, that's great. I think also growing up, my mom and dad would say, a reputation takes years to create and only seconds to destroy. So I think just being like present and aware of like who you are and what you're saying is always important too. But we all make mistakes. We all mess up.
Exactly.
But
yeah, like the half glass. What is it? What do they say? The glass is half empty or half full. Something
half
like
full, right? It's like your worldview. Are you like an optimist or a pessimist?
Yeah, exactly. That's one of my other sayings. I just have to get it right.
Just have to say it right. Otherwise,
exactly. Otherwise, that's my other favorite one.
That's great.
All right. Well, before we wrap this up, I want to leave you just with the last word. Anything that you want to talk about, say, advise that you want to give that maybe we didn't bring up in our conversation today.
Yeah, I think this is also a similar question I ask, to my guests on my podcast. What would you go back and tell your younger self, if you could go back? Because we all know we can't. Time is the only thing we have. But, what I would share to my, previous self would be to move forward with life with more confidence and intention, and to just, keep working hard and to not get discouraged and to focus. And I think, it's a question I ask all of my guests and I never really answer, but I think that would be my last word, is to just move forward in this life with confidence and without doubt, and, to really be conscious of the people and places you surround yourself with. And we touched on this earlier, but it's your life. Live it. Don't let people, hold you back that make you unhappy or you feel judgment from, because really once you release yourself from those kinds of, shackles of negativity, the whole world opens up to you.
Well said.
And I didn't even have that like written down. That just was like a bunch of BS that just spilled out of my mouth. But
no, I'm a firm believer that if you speak from the heart, the best stuff comes out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Really quickly, where can people find you on social media? What's your handle?
Yes, I'm at the Sarah Trott on Instagram. You can also find my website and blog, sarahtrottmedia.com. And then my podcast, the From Here to Where podcast, is on Apple and Spotify.
Very nice.
Woo! Yes.
Sarah, thank you so much for being here on the podcast today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I wish you the best, and you're doing a great job on your podcast. So everybody listening to this, go and check out her podcast. What's it called one more time?
From Here to Where.
From Here to Where. Go check it out.
Woo!
I always find it admirable, courageous, and a true privilege when someone comes on this podcast and lowers their defensive walls, if only for a moment, to share their story and dare to be raw and real. Sarah is truly a remarkable young woman, mature beyond her years. So Sarah, thank you again for coming on the Hangry Mexican. Again, be sure to follow her on social media. Those links will be provided in the description to this podcast episode. And check out her podcast, From Here to Where, streaming now on Apple Podcast and Spotify. And be sure to subscribe and please rate the Hangry Mexican Podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and all other major podcast platforms. The more people rate this podcast, the more ears it will reach. So I really do appreciate that. And please send comments and questions to hangrymexicanpodcast@gmail.com. I would love to feature your comments and questions on a future episode. Thank you for listening, and until next time, good night and good luck.